Angela. My burn story started probably before this, but November 2016, on evening 2016, I was using my laptop, sitting on my bed. It was a hot November night, and evening actually, it was 7:30, and I was using my laptop, working my resume, and it started to make this weird clicking sound. So I turned it over. I was actually trying to find out where the sound was coming from, and I listened to it, and I couldn't figure it out. So it was kind of coming from the battery area. I just wasn't sure. And as I was turning it back over, it wasn't quite on my lap, but I was still holding on to it. I just remember big puff of smoke, and then my floor was on fire. And I remember my first thought was, it's a small apartment building. There's only 7 other apartments besides mine, and that my other building mates were not going to have a place to live. So I immediately grabbed my pillows, and I was just like putting out the fires, and I still wasn't really clear on what had happened, but I just knew that my face was hot. So I went to the bathroom. I pulled a towel off the towel rack, and I got it wet, and I didn't want to drip water on the floor. So I hopped in the tub, was standing in the shower. The shower wasn't, I was just standing in the tub, and I put the cold towel up to my face because my face was hot, and then I looked down and I see my calf. My calf is filleted open. And I was thinking, okay, this is not a good thing, because I, at the time, was a Navy contractor, but my side job, which had paid my way through college, was working as an EMT in trauma in the ER. So my first thought was, okay, this is not good. So I'm gonna have to go to the hospital. And I didn't wanna, I'm like, well, I don't wanna call the fire department or an ambulance, because I didn't need one. I don't wanna waste resources. And then my next thought was, well, I could drive myself, but it's 7:30, 8 o'clock, and if I drive there, the security guard will take my keys, and then he'll go on lunch or he'll go on break, and then when I leave, I won't be able to get my car back. So I called a friend to take me to the ER, and that's when I realized that my burn was more extensive than I realized, and the doctor had, when I got to the ER, the doctor had pulled up a syringe of morphine and asked me if I wanted pain control. And I said, no, why? And his eyes just got really big, and then I realized, like, this is more serious than I thought. And so he just said, you know, how do you feel like staying with us? And I said, okay, thinking it was just going to be like overnight. And he was like, no, for a few weeks. And I was like, oh, okay. I just didn't realize it was as serious as I realized, because being unfamiliar with burns, I'm familiar now, but my burn specifically, the doctor's plan was that the burn has to progress and the skin's going to continue to die. So they do this thing called debridement. So on a daily basis, they remove all the dead skin and wrap you back up until it gets to a point where the dead skin is burned as far as it can go. And that's when they plan the surgery. So I think it happened on a Tuesday, and they did surgery on a Saturday. And so on a Saturday afternoon. So, which gives you a lot of time to be laying in bed, and like so much goes through your head, and not being familiar with burns. The hardest part for me was, what is this going to look like? And my legs were burned, and they were wrapped up, and are they going to remove my legs? Am I going to walk again? There's just so many unknowns, and it's really, really scary. And I, at the time, was in peak shape. I was a long distance runner. I was a marathon runner. I was working out in the gym every day, and it was just terrifying, like, not to know, to lay there and think the worst. Like, what is this going to happen? What's going to become of my legs? Am I going to run again? And two, like, how is this going to look? Is it going to be ugly? Are people going to judge me? is someone going to date me? You know, all this stuff just goes through your head. But also, it's, you know, why did this happen? Why did this happen to me? Why me? Why? It's just, there was so much going on in my head because after I got out of the hospital, I was unemployed and I didn't know like how long that was going to last, how long it's going to be before I'm going to be able to wear normal clothes again, just how long the rehab is going to go. And there's just so many unknowns. And at the time, I wasn't aware that there was burn support. So at some point, I learned specifically about burn support, which is another story. But I think when I think about my burns and my burn scars, and I think it's equally weighted, the good and the bad of it, and the laying in bed and just the first part of just being on this roller coaster of you not realizing, I think at first like you really don't realize like how much your life is going to change, and you're just thinking the worst and just being angry all the time. And why did this happen to me? And why does God hate me? And you just go through all these crazy just crazy thoughts. But and I think just the rehab itself, like just how painful it is, and being on the ward with other burn survivors and seeing people who have it so much worse, and hearing people crying and hearing the children crying, and just feeling bad. But also just so many unknowns, like how long is it going to take to rehabilitate this? When is my skin going to look normal? Am I going to look normal? It's just a thing. Like I remember, and I said this at some point at Burn Support, like I wouldn't even call myself a burn person or a burn survivor, because I just felt that like people who are, that I was somehow damaged, like I was somehow not the same person. And it took me a while to actually identify myself as a burn person, which I know is weird, but I think it's just because having been at the gym and always working on my body and my physique and running, and now I have this thing that I didn't ask for. And so now I'm walking around. It took me a long time to flip my script from just being this injured person with this ugly scar. And it took a while, you know, and I tell people too, I was pretty angry, and it took probably more than a year, maybe longer, to really be like, okay, this is not a terrible thing. I mean, it is what it is. I just have to make something good of it. And being involved in litigation it just complicated the burn, but maybe getting over it. I think being in litigation made it difficult for me to actually see the good in it. It's tough. I think it adds on the extra layer of challenge, but once I got into burn support and met other burn survivors with way worse burns, and I really started to see that something good can come out of this. And having met you and organizations like this that really help people see the good that they can do, the good that can come from it. So when I say that, when I ask burn survivors, and when I've witnessed this question and asked this question of myself, like, would you go back and change your injury? And a lot of people would say yes, because their injury happened for different reasons, whether they were doing something dumb, or it was an accident, or a traumatic injury, or there's things about it I would change, but honestly, like so much good has come from my injury, and the people that I've met through the Phoenix Society and organizations like this, and the questions that I've had to ask myself, the questions that my mom has asked me. And I was thinking about this earlier today, like what the challenge I don't know if that I ever would have challenged myself like my injury has challenged me. My injury has made me stronger than I ever knew I could be. And had someone told me that this 10 years ago, or even 5, 6 years ago, if this terrible, crazy thing is going to happen to me, and could I survive it? And I actually don't think that thinking back, I didn't think I could survive it. But then when you're forced to challenge yourself and really dig deep and pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and some of those days that were so painful, and even just sitting up on the side of the bed and having the blood rush into my leg, and I just was like, no, I can't do it, I can't do it. I remember telling the therapist, I can't. And them just really pushing me, and me like taking that first step, and then taking that next step, and taking that next step, realizing that I can do this, and I can go home, and I can start to help myself. But other good things that have come from this is the perspective of, and I remember laying in bed in the hospital and being so angry that this thing happened, but also, and then like a minute later being like, just be grateful that you're alive and that your legs are still attached at this point, because at some point I didn't know if my legs were still going to be attached, but just trying to be grateful for everything, and then the next minute being angry. You just go through this crazy like roller coaster. But once you're home and back in your environment where where you're comfortable with things and start to figure it out. One of another good thing that has come from this is just, being forced to figure it out, not having all the answers, being okay with not having all the answers, not really knowing what's going to happen, but also having to be creative, to make changes. And when I first started walking, and was walking with my walker, then walking with crutches, and then I was going to the grocery store, and you see those carts, and that motorized carts with the basket, and I decided, well, I'm just going to use them in every single store, and then write a mini review on which carts go fastest, which ones are slower, like the benefits of using them. And the ones at Costco are pretty slow, but the ones at Walmart go in reverse the fastest. I figured out. It was really funny. And just a small story, my first time out of the hospital, it was in the wintertime, and my sister, my legs were wrapped with bandages, and it was cold, and so we're trying to find pajamas that would fit over my bandages. And so my sister, who is absolutely amazing, who has 6 children, and took time out of her schedule to come down and help me. Side story. So a friend of mine picked her up at the airport. She lived in Northern California and came down to help me. And she came in when all of my bandages were down, because once a day they take down all your bandages and debride you. But my sister had come and just needed the keys to my apartment. And she was just visiting, and we were waiting. The nurse took down all my bandages, and we were just waiting for the doctors to come in. And I look over, and my sister out cold. She's so exhausted, but she had come from Northern California during the holiday season when her kids were home from college, and so came down to help me. And she's so amazing. She went to my apartment, and she took all the burn sheets off my bed and remade my bed. She cleaned out my refrigerator and put fresh food in my refrigerator. She covered my burn floor with area rugs, so when I came home that I wouldn't have to see that. And so I'm just so grateful in so many ways for my sister. But after I was my first day out of the hospital, we were at Walmart, and I was zooming around on this cart, and so we found some pajamas, but I needed to try them on. So we're in the changing stall, and we're just trying to hike up these pajamas over my bandages, and we're both in the changing room. She's trying to help me, and I fell over on her, And we both fell over on the floor, and we were laughing so hard. That day is going to go down in history. The two of us, we still laugh about it, how we were trying to get pajama pants over my bandages, and I just fell into her, tried to stand up because I was using my crutches and walker at the time, and we just fell over. And it's just one of those sister things that will always have that no matter what. So, but I kind of forgot where I was going with this, but I'm so just some of the good things that have come out of my, and it takes time, other burn survivors who are new, who are still on their discovery of why did this happen, and it took some time to like, okay, what good can come from this? What good can come from this? Because it's easy to focus on the negative and always be like, this sucks, and why did this happen to me, and to blame everybody on earth, and mine specifically was an accident. There is nothing that I could have done to prevent it. So I think just the shock and surprise of it, but I think just education and reaching out to other people and letting them know that this can happen, that laptop batteries do explode, and they will continue to do so. Hopefully at some point, more safety steps will be in place, and that'll stop happening. But so when I go to burn conferences, I just raise awareness that this does happen, and just to be safe. But also that I've been able to join the Phoenix Society and meet other burn survivors and learn from them, and learn about skincare and just other people's stories of the good that they've done with being a burn survivor. But it's a journey. It's a journey of self-discovery. I'm human, so I didn't just come. I think when I was released from the hospital and just coming home and just refiguring out, how the clothes I'm going to wear, and just being able to get around to the kitchen and being able to cook things. But my friends would call and would be like, "Oh, so you're fine, right? It's almost like a Jack in the Box. Like, you just came out of the hospital and then you're right back to work." And you're like, "No, I'm not back to work. I don't even know where this is going." And there's just so many unknowns when you first come out, and I think it's the scariest part. But just so fortunate for burn support and organizations like this, where people can go to and share their stories and meet other people who their magnitudes of strength are mind-blowing. I'm so fortunate to have met so many other people that have been so impactful, and I'm just so grateful. So grateful. And I am beautiful, and this is me.